Hey gamers, today we're going to look at Mice and Mystics. Let's check it out. First thing to do when talking about the game, it comes with a great rule book that gives you all the rules. It's very simple and easy and straightforward, gives you lots of good examples. And then of course you have the beautiful adventure book. And this adventure book tells you everything you need to know about setting up each adventure. It'll tell you what you should do on certain tiles. It'll even tell you how to set up everything. The tiles are like this. They're all double-sided here. You can have a below ground, which is signified in the silver, and then above ground, which is in the gold. Of course, you cannot go above ground and below ground here. So for instance, if I was traveling from one place to the next, I couldn't go between these two spots because they do not match up. They would have to match up for me to go there. Now each one of these tokens actually have these directional icons on them to tell you where you should place them, and so they all should be placed up. So actually in this encounter here, I could not go from one room to the next because this one has a doorway where this one does not. So in this example, how would I get from this room to this room if I had to? Well, as you see, there are these little there's little icons here. They're all on each one of the boards, and what you do is when you go there and you export, you can flip it over and go underground. As you see, you'd start where that little flip over icon is, and if you wanted to go back up the staircase there, you flip it back over. So that's kind of how each one would work there. So again, using that same example, if I want to get from one room to the next, all I'd have to do, go underground here. Where's my arrow there? There it is. And then go underground here, and as you see, aha, those two match up. So I could actually go underground there, then pop up over here, and I could be in that room. And the game is going to make you do a lot of that, going underground, going above ground, just to get to different rooms because you can't go through them. Of course, in this example, I keep putting this thing upside down here, but it would go like this, and that means you wouldn't be able to get through it from one to the next, but if you went underground, you could. Now, each one of these also have different items, spaces, as you see, are located out here. If there's a wall or no space, those are areas that the mice cannot go onto. You could have special things like this. Here, you see we have red lines here. That means they can't go from the stone floor to the table here. That movement is not allowed. But as you see, sometimes we have stuff outlined in yellow. That means it takes them 3 movement moves to get up on like the stool or the grandfather clock, or get from the stool to the table. It takes 3 movements, and that's denoted again by the yellow outline. And the game will tell you there's different rules for different movements in different areas where you're at. Some places, like this little pit here, it would not only would it block line of sight, but also you couldn't move onto that space. Duh, right? The only other thing that I can say with movements is there is one here. Water movements can be different too, and I'll talk about that later. Now in the game, you're basically going to be choosing from one of these adventures here, several different mice to choose from here, and the book will tell you what mice you can't choose in the adventure. Some adventures you can't choose certain mice to do. Some, they have to be part of the party. And you can play anywhere from 1 to 4 players because no one's playing the villain in this game. The villain is AI. It's automatic. It'll tell you exactly how the villain should, bad guy should move, how they attack. I'll get into all that in a minute, but you're going to basically choose to be one of these mice. I just want to look at these sculpts real quick. They're very nice. I've seen these things painted before online. I wish I had the talent to paint them, but you know, I'm not that talented. but the mice just look amazing there, and even not painted, they just look really beautiful on the board here. So what you do is everyone would pick one and you would start somewhere on the board. So let's say if I was starting here, I grab my 4 heroes, and let's say they just started here because they just popped up into that kitchen tile. Now, I'll talk more about the boards in a minute. I want to get to this thing here, this initiative track. This is what's going to help you out throughout each game. It's going to be over on the side. You're going to have several boards set up. It doesn't really take up that much room though, because you can always remove a board or not place one that you haven't gotten to yet. Just know what order they should be in according to your adventure guide here. So let's look at this over here. This is where all the magic happens. This is where you're going to put initiative cards. There's going to be an initiative track of who's going first. It'll be laid out here. What you're going to do is you're going to take cards of your characters, the characters that you picked, and you're going to shuffle them in, of course, with minions and lay them out here, and that's going to tell you who's going to go first. Now, there's other things you'll have. You have a little sand timer. Each one of the games are timed. They will start right here on page 1, and then you have a little the end token, and it will go wherever the chapter says it'll end. So if this book says, hey, this adventure will take 6 pages, okay, well, I would put it here on page 6. That means I have until page 6 to finish my objective. If I do not, then I will lose the round, the game there. Now, I've never seen anything go above page 6. I don't see a page 7, 8, 9. I guess those are for future expansions, or maybe just fan-made expansions. You can just make your own there. But, or maybe you want to put it on easier level. Maybe you put on 7, 8, or 9. I don't know. Most of them go from 4, 5, or 6. That's usually what you're going to see there. And you'll adjust, you know, as the guidebook tells you. Now, other things you'll be getting, there's search cards. There's a search deck. I'll be talking about searches and the abilities. Sometimes your character will start with certain items from the deck. Like, for instance, Nez's hammer is what he gets. This Lily gets, of course, Lily's bow, and so on and so forth. So you would search through the deck and get those items for that character. So, for instance, if it's Tilda, there's Tilda's mace. I would give Tilda that. As you see, sometimes they have requirements. You have to be Tilda to hold the mace. No one else can have it. You have to be Lily to have her bow, and so on and so forth. Sometimes you have to be a warrior to carry a sword. Or, well, there's something for Nez. There's Nez's hammer. Sometimes it says party item, and that means anyone in the party, regardless of who has it, can use this item. It's not owned by one particular person. But anyway, I'll get into more about the items later on when I get to a search. But that's your search deck there. Now, the other thing they have put out here is the event deck. The event deck comes in 2 different ones. You have basic standard encounters, and then, of course, you have advanced encounters. And the book will tell you, once again, whether you need to shuffle these or a little mix of both. It may say, hey, all basic encounters here for this adventure. Or it says, hey, 4 basic and 2 advanced, and shuffle them together, mix them up. And what it's going to do is every time you explore a different tile, you'll flip this over, and depending on what page you are in the adventure, it'll tell you what all minions you need to bring out to them. There's even things for surges too, which I'll get to in a moment. But these are the encounter cards here of stuff you can come across. If the book does not tell you, the book should tell you what you're going to start off with. And sometimes the book will have special encounters. It say, hey, don't pull a card here. You just go by what we said would be on this next tile. So you need to keep constantly checking the book before you pull one of these encounter cards. But these encounter cards are kept here. Finally, the other thing here is the cheese wheel. I'll get to that in a minute. If you put cheeses up there, this is what could create a surge, which, of course, as you saw, could be something bad coming at you. Or it's definitely going to advance the page up. And so it's going to end the game sooner when the cheese wheel fills up. When the cheese wheel fills up, you'll remove it and start all over again. I'll explain how that works in a moment. Now, as I said, what you're doing is you are picking one of these characters, and they have different icons on them, and I'll talk about that in a minute. They have different abilities. Everyone comes with their own little special ability, very self-explanatory. They even have a number of hearts. That's how much health you have. Hearts are determined by these health tokens, so when you get hit, you place one on your card. If you get 3, of course, I'll tell you what happens in a minute. But you may also get poisoned, and in that case, you just flip this over, and it's green on one side, red on the other. There are different ways to heal from from poison and wounds, different healing potions, or different things you can do, and I'll talk about those later on. You're also going to be picking one ability to start off with. These abilities are basically free actions, free things you can do in the game. You do have to pay the cheese that's allotted to it, and of course you need to make sure that this ability matches your class. So if I am Lily the archer, then I may not have Battle Squeak because it is only for warriors. I would have to find something. There's a leader, there's one for an archer. Preemptive shot. You can also have ones for healers. Some will say any, some will say scamp or archer. So you pick one of these abilities. Now, if ever you want to upgrade and get more abilities, what you need to exchange is 6 cheese. For 6 cheese tokens, you can go get yourself another ability. Grab another ability from the deck and apply it to your mouse. You can have unlimited abilities, and doing that is a free action as well, exchanging 6 cheese for 1 ability. So as the game goes on, if you keep playing, you're going to have plenty of abilities. You can only do 1 per turn, and of course for each one you do, you of course have to pay that cheese. So let's talk about how an average game would go. First off, you'd set up your mice, however it says in the book. You take all your little cards here, and then you take any minion cards that are put in this. And let's say we're going to add roaches and rat warriors to it. And what we do is we take these cards and we shuffle them all up. And we wouldn't know which one's going where. We'd shuffle them up and then we dole them out right here on the initiative track. And that would determine who's going first, second, third, and whatnot in the game. As you can see, villains can go in between the actions of the heroes, and the villains are on AI, which I'll talk about how that works in a minute. But how to set up villains on here, you have these little spots where these little footprints are, and that's where you can put the little minions. Most of the time you will get to choose. Some of the time though, the book will say, hey, all the roaches go on the table. You know, and then in that case, well then let me put 1 rat here and 1 rat warrior there. You get to determine usually, unless the book says otherwise, where everything gets to go. And this one table is one big space, so I could put as many roaches as I wanted to up here, or minions as I could, if the book allowed it. Now, after that, we'd shuffle out these cards, show the initiative, everyone would go in that turn. When it came to the bad guy's turn, someone will roll for the bad guys and, you know, move their figure and put them to battle if that be the case. So what all actions do you have if you are a mouse? Well, the first thing you can do, you can move and do an action, or do an action and move. It's vice versa. If I wanted to move first, what I'd have to do is basically just roll 1 die and add that to the number of movement that I have indicated on my card. So as you see there, Lily would move 2. Nez, pretty slow. He'd move 1, 2, 2. I think Filch is really fast. He's a 3. So for Filch, let's say, well, I don't have Filch on the board. Let's say it's Maginos. I would roll 1 of these die. Ignore any of the symbols on here, and I'll talk about what the symbols mean in a minute, but you're going to look at the top left-hand corner of each one of these. They have a number associated with them. And that number is going to tell you how much they can move added to their footprint there. So for instance, let's say I rolled this. That was a 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. Maginos can move up to 5. 1, 2, 3. Well, I can't move up further than that. But if I had 3 more spaces here from yellow, from this yellow line, I could actually move up here. So let's say I start here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could get in there, or 5. But anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how you can move around like that. You can move catty-cornered as long as it's allowed, as long as there's no items. For instance, this bucket here, I couldn't move around the bucket and go 1, 2. I can't move on the bucket. The bucket's not part of one of the spaces there. So you can basically look at the art of the board and tell where the spaces are. Of course, the table is one big space, so I could get up on the table and move anywhere around there. It doesn't matter. I still have to fight these roaches. So that's how a move goes there. Now, as an action, you can also do an additional move. It's called a scurry. And what you do is you do the same action again. So if you need to just move or run really fast, that's an action you can do. One thing I told you I'd talk to you about when it came to movement was movement through water. Let's say Filch here had a 5 and he went 1, 2, 3, 4 he can't move again because once you hit water, you cannot move after that. So even if he had 5 moves, he went 1, that would end his move. Now for another whole move, he can move 1 more space because moving in water from one space to the next costs all of your movement combined. And at the end of your turn, if you're not out of the water, as you see, they have these little arrows here, that means the current is going to take that player 1 space over. Now if you get washed off the board, something will happen to you. The book will tell you what would happen. Sometimes it's, well, most times it's always bad. You don't want to be pushed off the board here. Now to get out of the water, you have to roll one of these die and get one of these star tokens. So for instance, let's say Filch, I'm going to put it right here. Let's say Filch was trying to get out of the water here and he rolled. Well, he rolled a star so he can climb right out. But what if he didn't? Well, he'd be stuck there. But if there is another mouse there on that board who can help you out, you get to roll 2 die. 1 for yourself and 1 for them. And if either you roll a star, which neither one could, then, but if either one of them rolled a star, you could pull that player out. Another action you can do is you can recover. There's several things that can happen to you, bad things that can happen to you in the game. For instance, you could be stunned. And if your mouse is stunned, you'd actually put this on their card. And that means that though they can move, they can't search, they can't do anything else until you get this stun token away. So for an action, you can remove the stunned. And that would remove him from being stunned. And then he could go about using all his actions. If you are webbed, and of course this would be if you encountered one of these nasty spiders here. As you see, there's a spider in it. Let me show you some of the minions here. The roaches, the rats, they look really neat in here. There's also a centipede here, which is really nasty. You do not want to mess with him. But anyway, if you do get caught in a spider's web, you can't move. You can do actions, but you can't move. And so to get out of a web, you would basically use a recover action, roll 1 die, and if you roll the little star symbol, then you can get unwebbed there, and then you can start moving again. One other condition is charmed. If you are charmed, there's nothing you can do to get out of it. What you're going to do is you're going to attack a fellow mouse, which really sucks, but you have to attack them. You do 1 battle, and then after that battle's over, you remove the charm, and you're back to normal again. Another action you can do is you can search. To search, basically, you're going to look at the little feathers, and that's how many die you can roll to search. As you see, some of them, like Maginos, he can search, he can roll 3 die. Filch, not good at searching, he can only roll 1 die. But anyway, you would take that number of die, roll it, and if you had any stars come up, which I did barely, had 1 star emblem show up there, I can grab the top item from the search deck. Now, let's look into this search deck a little bit further here. As you see, sometimes you can roll items, weapons. There are sometimes tricks in here. Tricks are just special abilities you can use the card for. Sometimes there's there's armor. Again, there's party items. Sometimes in the book it'll tell you, hey, a special search. First person who does a search and they're successful, they get the dinner fork. You know, it'll tell you. Sometimes you have to go through this deck and pull out specific cards for them to find if they do a successful search. This is actually part of the promo deck here, but yeah, some of these items, this one requires a warrior, scamp, or archer. You need to make sure you have the requirements. Some have no requirements or requires this to use. Some of them, like this one, treachery. If you get something called treachery or fortune, you have to deal with it immediately once you draw it. If you get anything else, you can equip your mouse with it. As you see, the little icons here will tell you if they can be equipped with it. Sometimes it has 1 arm. So for instance, let's say I was Tilda. Tilda has 1 arm carrying the mace. Well, now she can have 1 arm carrying a dagger too. So you can have a dagger and a mace. I can have both of these. But if I was Lily, I have the bow, and as you see, that takes up both my hands. So I could not grab another item with her or use it. I could switch it out, And like I said, each mouse has a pack they can carry up to 3 items with. Party items do not count. Party items are used by anyone. They go into like their own little general deck there if you recover something that says party item on it. But in your own pack, you can carry up to 3 items. You can also, plus anything else you hold, you get an unlimited number of tricks you can hold on to. You don't have to discard those, but you can keep all those, anything that you search. Now, what if you find something that you cannot use? Like, let's say I found a scroll and I'm Nez and I can't use any scrolls because I don't have enough magic in me to use them. Well, there's a few things you can do. First off, you can hold on to it and trade with another player or give it to another player. All you have to be is on their space or next to it, and you can give as many cards as you want, trade back and forth. You can also trade cheese back and forth as well too. So if I want to, maybe someone is 1 short of upgrading and getting another ability, well, I can give them all my cheese. This is a free action. Doesn't count as a regular action. It's just a free action. Now, what if no one needs that item? What if I got just something pointless, like maybe some armor, and everyone had armor? Well, then what I do is I could just discard it and I could get a cheese for it. Another action you can do is explore. You can only explore a tile to move to the next tile as long as there are no other minions on the board. If there are no other minions on the board, and let's say you're right here, you may explore. Now, what if all of my other characters are up here on the table? Well, it doesn't matter. They would go with me to that next tile. Even if I wanted to go back underground, that would be an action. I could explore, and everyone would start on the bottom right there, okay, for the next turn, and the rounds would go on. Of course, the last action is a battle. In battle, you have icons here. You have sword and shields, just regular swords. You have the cheese. You have range weapons. What you're going to do is you're going to roll according to this amount. You know, whatever you have on that. So I roll 1 die if it's him, 2 die if it's Filch, 2 die if it's Nez. And then, of course, you're going to add anything else to any weapons that you have. But let's say I was attacking. You have to be next to or on the same space as a minion. And by the way, if you move onto a space with a minion, you have to fight them. You can't retreat. The only way you can retreat is if there's more than 1 mouse. So for instance, let's say there's 2 mice here, and Maginos is hurting, man. I don't want him getting hit. And so if I wanted to, I could retreat. As long as there's 1 other mouse that I'm leaving high and dry for that battle, that's cool. But other than that, if it's just 1-on-1, you have to fight that minion. So let's say I'm Colin. I'd roll 2 die here. Any swords I have count as a hit. So you see here, I rolled a sword and a shield, which is 1 hit, and then a cheese. Now, if I rolled a cheese during battle, that means I'm also going to get a cheese during that. Yay! So it looks like I'm going to defeat the rat, huh? No, not really, because now we have to roll for the rat. And as you see here on their little initiative card, they get 2 shields, which means they get to roll 2 die. Anytime they roll the sword and the shield, that's going to block my hits. Let's see if they blocked it here. No, they did not. They did not roll the shield. They're going to get defeated. And so, as you see here, they have 0 health on there, so only 1 hit will knock them off the board. But, looking at my roll, it looks like I rolled a cheese. Now, when a minion rolls cheese, you take one of their cheeses and you put it on the wheel there, the cheese wheel, which of course, as you see, this is going to advance the game and do a surge in it. When it's totally full, you'll either have a surge of whatever the encounter card says or whatever the rule book says. Sometimes they give you special surges in the game. So that's what happens when minions attack or defend and roll cheese. If you attack and defend and roll cheese, you get to keep that cheese. And you can use it to upgrade your abilities or use one of your abilities that you already possess. Now, on range weapons, of course, you need to make sure you have line of sight. So for instance, let's say if I was going to shoot this cockroach there and I was Lily here, I do have line of sight right here, but if I was right here, I do not have line of sight. This dictates no line of sight. I would have to move around here to that corner where I could get line of sight. So Lily rolls 2 die. She wants to roll these little archer icons, and she does not. Now she gets cheese, but she just missed. Now, even though she missed, does the minion have to roll? Yes, the minion always has to roll. So the minion rolls now, and as you see, roaches only use 1 die, and so the roach blocks a missed arrow. Minions, when it comes to their turn, they're going to attack the person who is closest to them. They're going to move in and attack. If it's a ranged attack, they're not going to move at all. They're just going to fire from that area if they can see them, if they have line of sight. But if they're melee, which these two are, then they would move in and then attack. Now, what if there were two characters on the same space? Who would attack first? Well, the villain would attack whoever's highest on the initiative track, which would be Colin. And so then one of the players, doesn't matter which player it would be, except for Colin, would roll 2 die to attack Colin. And they missed, but they did get cheese, so you'd put another cheese token on the wheel. Colin would still be able to defend if he had 2 defense, because, of course, if he had any cheese, he could add it to himself. Also, if he has any extra, shield, like a shield, a helmet, or a breastplate, that could also be used added to his defense. Now, of course, anytime you're hit, you're going to take one of these little hit tokens on you. If a minion is totally defeated, let's say I defeat this rat. Okay, well then I would remove the rat card from the initiative track and move everyone else up. And then if I killed the roach, I'd move them up again, and it'd just be us 4 heroes. Now, if it gets to all 4 heroes, of course, this is the only time you can explore different tokens, is when it's just there's no minions on the board. But also, a few other things could happen. Every time you get to the last player's turn, you have to add an additional cheese to the wheel, because this is a time game. They don't want you just lumbering around. If there was no minions here and there were none coming, you could just do unlimited searches, right? No, so it kind of hurries you up in the game, because every time you go through the end of the round, another cheese is added to the wheel. Now, other things that could happen during battle, your character could get knocked down. If they are knocked down, they have to use their entire move action to stand back up. They can still defend themselves when they're on the ground, and they can still attack when they're on the ground, but their entire movement must be to pop back up. What if they get defeated? What if Lily gets 3 hearts on her and she gets killed? Well, a few things are going to happen. First off, Lily is removed from the game. Now, her card stays on the initiative track. It does until all the villains, let's say it was a roach that took her out, all the villains are defeated. She's not going to come back until that last roach gets defeated. So she's out of the game. What happens to her? Well, first off, she gets to remove all her, hit tokens from her. That's really good. So when she pops back up, she's going to be refreshed and good. But she's going to lose all of her cheese tokens. She's going to lose any items that she has in her hand that she did not start with. So for instance, she would start back with her bow again, but if she had upgraded to a different bow or a different weapon, and that's when she had gotten killed, or captured is what they say here. If she'd have been captured with that, she'd have lost all those items, all the cheese, any items in her pack. They do get to stick around, but everything else would just go away. And so then, once the last roach is defeated and removed, then Lily would pop back up on the board. All right, now, what if we're still fighting here and it's Lily's turn, but she's out of the game? Well, then you would skip her and then go up to the next person on the track. And that's what would happen if you suffered enough damage to be taken out of the game. Now, sometimes on these cards, I will tell you this, on the initiative cards, what happens if there's a special surge and it says, hey, bring a spider on the board? Well, what would I do here? Well, do I have to reshuffle? I'd have to add the spider. As you see, spider takes 3 hits there. I have to add a spider in here. Do I have to reshuffle everything? No. You just add any incoming minions, additional minions. You place them on one of the little footsteps there, and you place them at the bottom of the initiative track. In some cases, like Brody the cat, he has 2 separate cards that you're going to shuffle in. So Brody could be attacking at 2 times during one whole round. And what happens is, as you see, he only takes 1 hit to kill Brody. But when you get that 1 hit, you're only going to remove one of these cards, and the players get to decide which card gets removed. So to kill Brody, I actually have to hit him twice. Once, and I could get rid of one of these, and then the second time I could get rid of the other one. And there are some cards in the deck, especially if you get the expansions, who have the same thing. In fact, here, there he goes, Venestra. She has 2 different cards in the deck, or maybe 3 different cards. Yeah, she has 3 different cards in the deck. Really hard to kill, but every time you get a hit on her, you get to remove one of those cards, and it's player's choice. And of course, the initiative, once someone's removed from the game, the initiative track just shuffles up that way. Now, this game does come with lots of expansions. The Heart of Gloom expansion actually comes with a lot of adventures, 2 new tokens, another mouse you can be, and here's Gloom, the villain. Basically, it reuses all of the old minions from the first game. Basically gives those minions special abilities. There's like zombie rats, there's spitting roaches, and the cards will tell you, they have updated initiative track cards you can place down, but you'll use the same figures as before, just give them different abilities. Okay, but that's what Heart of Gloom comes with. Now, the other one was called Downward Tales. Downward Tales comes with a ton of new minis. Just to kind of show you some of these, look at that. That's the badger there. It looks really awesome. These are put in the deck. They're put in the adventure. You just look up the adventure book. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Look at that little frog there, man. They come with 3 new heroes. If you can see that. Really, again, the miniatures on here are just so sweet. So a lot of cool little minions that you'll be fighting. They also have other ones here. They have a snake. He's basically a cardboard piece, but he has lots of tails and he kind of worms around. This takes place outside. These adventures take place outside, and he is really scary when you put him on the board, especially when he's all stretched out. The Downward Tales also comes with 2 extra things that can happen to your mouse. First off, they could be cursed. If they're cursed, every time they roll a cheese in battle, instead of getting that cheese, it goes straight to the wheel. So it treats them like a minion. So it sucks to be cursed. To get uncursed, you have to do a recover action on top of a 4-leaf clover. And there's plenty of 4-leaf clover tiles in the game. But that's how you can get uncursed. And the other one, oh, that's just mean, man. You can be on fire. If you're on fire, that means every time you have this token on your card, you're going to suffer 1 damage. To get out of fire, you have to roll, of course, a recover action, get a star, and you can put yourself out. Or if it's raining, which the scenario will tell you if it's raining or not, you'll automatically remove this when it comes to your turn. Now, the game ends if you have completed or failed your quest within that allotted time. And that's Mice and Mystics. Final thoughts. What do I think about the game? Well, I'm sorry it was a little choppy there. I only had 10,000 interruptions during filming that. I think it took me well over an hour. This is a fun game. This is a dungeon crawl for families. I hear that said a lot, like this is good for kids. And yeah, it is good for kids. In fact, my little nephews who have not played this game, I think would really like it. I tried to play it with the missus, but she was not a big fan. Thankfully, the game does play solo, and so I definitely did enjoy it. It's got a great story to it. Some levels are hard. It took me a while, a couple of playthroughs to beat them. I mean, it's just brutal. One of them I remember in particular is that you have to, and it may have been one of the other expansions here, but you had to save someone, and once you saved him, the hourglass went up another page. It's like, well, I can't afford that. I'm already behind. So I always had to let that dude just drown, or I didn't save him. I don't know what happened to him. But anyway, the miniatures look great. I remember seeing this game at Gen Con both years I went. I was like, man, there's always people playing it. It looks so much fun, but there was never any room for me to join in. And I just went ahead and broke down and got them all. And I'm glad I did, because it really is a fun, simple adventure. Now, as for the expansions, the first one, the Heart of Gloom expansion. This is a small little expansion. By the way, it looks like a book. Isn't that so cool there? But this is a small expansion. The story is really good. Basically, it just uses stuff from the base game. It doesn't give you much. There's not much bang for your buck, but you can get it cheap online, and it is a nice little extra adventure to add on. However, the big one is Downward Tales. This is one of their big box expansions. This is really good. All the new characters you can be, the new villains you face, the story now that you're outside. Could be raining, could be day, could be nighttime. That makes a big difference too. I don't want to ruin anything in the stories here, but they do all connect. It would be Mice and Mystics first, then of course, Heart of Gloom, and then Downward Tales. Now, there are two print and play adventures that they made called Lost Tales, and you can play them whenever you want, but usually you play the first two Lost Tales at the end of the first Mice and Mystics. It kind of hints toward Heart of Gloom. They didn't come out with any other print and play after that, but should you get them? Well, if you have kids and you've wanted a dungeon adventure, I think this is good for the whole family. I think it's a good family fun game. It's got definitely a thick theme to it. What about adults? Would they enjoy it? Yeah, I think so. People who usually tend not to, they tend to stray away from the whole quest building, dungeon quest thing. They don't want to do that. I think this would appeal to them. So overall, I think it's great. What about the expansions? You don't really need any of the expansions. The base game will be fine. You can have a big splendid adventure. There's like side adventures you can have that will benefit you later on, in the game, which is really nice if you want to take the time to do them. But yeah, the other adventures are really good too. So if you like Mice and Mystics, you should get them all. Now, as of this video, Downward Tales is not in print, which makes it extremely hard to get, but I can't imagine them keeping it out of print forever. Anyway, gamers, that's all the time I have for now. Until next time, game on!